Before the COVID pandemic, I was a youth worker, social worker, and I was specialized in online youth work and the influence of social media on the youth, teenagers and youngsters. I started Social Life this year because I want to train other youth workers in their online work. I'll do that again.
I'm going to ask you, so if I ask you instead to say, for example, you started training people this year.
Yeah.
And just tell me why it's important during COVID. So you don't have to say the name of your company because we've already got that from the tape.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I started Social Life because I I wanted to do the training because I think it's very important to help other youth workers and social workers in their online work. They got to get more connected to the people around their organizations and to the youngsters and the teenagers on the street.
And why is that so important, particularly now during COVID?
What we've seen during COVID is that the government is losing confidence of a lot of people, and especially young people, on their restrictions. What we see is that the specialists are always talking about the restrictions and the explanations of it on the late night TV shows and on the late night TV tables. And what they got to do is get the information out of these late night programs and onto the street. And that's when online youth work comes in. So a good example is this intensive care medic, who's also an advisor of the government, and he picked up this signal and he started his own Instagram account, and within 1 week he had over 350,000 followers, and he now does Q&A sessions on Insta Live every week. So that's a good example of how to get the information where it belongs on the street, how to get the information to the youngsters and the teenagers.
And have you had to adapt your work during COVID? How do you do it? What kind of adaptations have you had to make?
At the start of the pandemic, when we all had to work out of our homes, I also started my Insta Live sessions. That's a pretty good way to connect with the teenagers and the youngsters. Before the coronavirus, I went to many schools and gave them lessons about the influence of social media and so on, right? And what we always said was, if you're in trouble, go to your parents, go to the police, go to your teacher, of course. But if you don't know what to do, send us a DM, a direct message on Instagram, and I help you to make the right decisions what to do, right? And what we see in the COVID pandemic is children getting more bored and sometimes even depressed. And because we already had the connection with the youngsters, they now feel free to contact us.
That's great. So you've already set it up, and I mean, it's difficult to access young people now because of COVID. So can you tell me about the fact that it is difficult to physically reach people, and that's why digital interaction is so important?
Yeah, COVID forced us to work online, right? But the importance of online work was already before. Our focus on online work was already before COVID, right? And now we during COVID, we had the profits of it. So that's why I wanted to teach more youth workers in their online work. Get the connection. They got to get the connection, and to get the connection, you must create some meetings. In my case, it were the lessons on the schools, right? So if the youth workers can do something in the schools or around the schools, and they see a lot of youngsters, get connected, for example, by Instagram, stay connected, keep in contact with them, and always tell them if you're in need, just send me a direct message and I'll help you.
Also, there's a lot of negative influences online. I mean, for example, the far right have been very good at digital strategy and digital technology for over a decade. And lots of youth workers and lots of policy hasn't really understood or caught up with it. I mean, do you feel like there's lots of negative stuff out there and that we're still trying to catch up with it?
Yeah, that's why we need to teach the youngsters how the internet and the social platforms work, right? We've seen a lot of alternative facts, all kinds of different theories about COVID and so on, right? It's also about climate change, for example. So what we need to do is to teach our youngsters how these platforms work and how algorithms work, right? These algorithms are, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems for our future, right? These algorithms make them, they take them onto one side, and what we got to teach them is how algorithms work, and that they always have to find different opinions, because algorithms they have so much influence on them that they even that in fact they okay, how do you say it?
Maybe it's something they don't even know.
Yeah, I know. The algorithms can even change their way of thinking.
I mean, I don't think many adults are aware of the full importance of this as well. It's not just young people. It's like everybody. You know, we're playing catch up with the digital revolution, and you know, it's in our best interests to catch up quickly.
Yes, you're absolutely right. A lot of adults don't even understand the way that algorithms work. But what we see is that the youngsters are way more active on social media and the new platforms as the little bit older people, right? So, in my opinion, we got to start directly when they start using social platforms and the internet in basic. So at the age of 8, 9, 10 years old, we've got to teach them how to use it properly, right?
And yeah, absolutely. And do you think COVID's made this much more important and much more relevant?
Well, the COVID pandemic can only be stopped if we keep ourselves on the restrictions, right? And what we see is that the influence of the alternative facts, that's what the young people see. They see alternative facts, and then they see more of them and more and more and more, and in the end they think that's the truth, right? And that's where a lot of teenagers say, I don't have to keep myself on the restrictions because it's all fake news, and everybody who says something different is fake. Just like the American politics problem, right? So this is because it's now a pandemic and it's about our health, and it became more duidelijk. It became during the pandemic. It became more obvious that this is a problem, in fact, and it's not only because of COVID. It's also about climate change. It's also about fugitives. It's about all other topics. There's a real big polarization going on, and that's why we have to train and teach the children how the social networks work.
You said last time we spoke that one of the well-known Dutch phrases, go to the areas where young people are. and
Yeah.
young people are, in fact, in a digital space. Can you just repeat and tell me that again, please?
Yeah. What we've seen is that the discussion is going on the late night tables, right? In Holland, they always say the youth workers and the social workers got to be in the neighborhood where the youngsters are. If you want to reach the youngsters, be in the neighborhood where the youngsters are. And the neighborhood with the most youngsters is the telephone neighborhood, right? It's the social media neighborhood. So if you want to reach them, you got to be there.
And you said that in terms of practical teaching for digital youth workers, you tell them about algorithms, and you teach them about how they work and
Yeah.
they reinforce. But what else do you do to help and train people to be digital youth workers?
During my time as a youth worker, I also developed a 5-year continuous program on social media, starting with kids in the age of about 10, and it starts with small issues like what are real friends, cyberbullying, and it's going up to sexting, grooming, polarization, etc. So they saw me every year, and because they saw me year after year after year, they were thinking, well, oh, this guy is okay. And so they feel free that if they were in need, they send me a direct message.
Great. And what opportunities does working online with young people give us? I mean, what can we do online that we can't do offline? Is there anything more than just the same conversations? Does it give us access to different worlds with them, or does it stop different dangers? Or do you just see it as a reflection of the offline space? I mean, as an adult, what does it offer us?
The online compartment, the online work gives us the opportunity to get also in their living space, right? I think it's not a good word. Let me think.
I mean, living space is good, and I think there's this idea from me that young people don't see on and offline as that separate sometimes. There's valid relationships, there's valid experience.
Yes. Yeah. Social workers and youth workers, they got to understand that their online work is not instead of, but it's an extra. It's an extra way to get contact, to get the first contact, right? So the problems also with the algorithms is that it's not about just creating an account and then it's okay. No, you got to be active online also. They've got to see you again and again and again. And if you don't post, for example, 1 or 2 times a week, then you'll be at the bottom of their timeline. So they don't see you. So you got to be active online. You got to react sometimes, and you got to have some interaction with them. And if you got that interaction, then they keep seeing you, and then they feel confident. So it's not instead of offline work, but it's besides offline work. It's an extra way to contact them, and organizations got to take it serious, right? They must facilitate their people in their online work, and it's not about just a good telephone or a good camera, but it's also about programs on the computer to let them make good videos and give them time to work online. It's not about you can send a message in a few seconds. No, if you want to do it, real good, then you have to create enough time for them to do it.
And how important is it to recruit the right people, so digitally literate youth workers for this type of work?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, how important is it to recruit digitally literate youth workers?
Oh, it's very important. Yes, it's very important. It's got to be in the education of youth workers. It's got to be a big thing in their education to become a social worker or a youth worker. We advise sometimes 20 to 25% of the time must be used on online work. 20 to 25%. So that's a big issue, right? It's a big thing. So it also has to be big in their education.
So where did you get that number from? What's the sort of evidence of that?
It's about how many time we spend in creating films, small video, creating content. So I'll do that again. You were talking about the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, how did you come up with a figure for 25%, basically?
Oh yeah, the 20 to 25% is all about experience. The experience we have is that if you want to do it properly, you got to invest 20% of the time in online work. And it's 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. But if you want to make a video, it's quite more time, right? And you got to be, it's also about looking at the timelines of the youngsters to see what they're doing, where they're going, and what are the groups they're in, and what are the theories they believe in.
And I guess you've got to give a bit of yourself here, because you can't, you know, when you're on these social platforms, you've got to have authenticity. You can't be hanging around watching, being creepy. You have to be able to show yourself and be a kind of likable version of yourself. And I guess there's a difficult skill set there for some people.
Yeah. What's very important to say is that we always say to the new youth workers also, it's very important to be online just as you are offline, right? Don't turn yourself online on Instagram as some big guy who's very fashionable if you're not, right? They got to know you. So if they see you on Instagram, they got to say, oh, well, hey, that's Frank, right? This is Frank, this is how I saw him, and this is how he's now.
Yeah, that's important. That's a really good point. And some people could get that so wrong.
Yeah. It's very important to be both online and offline, just as you are.
And professional.
And yeah, of course, very professional. That's also a thing. Everybody can search for you on Google. Yeah, so they got to be aware of their own digital footprint. What are they doing online? If you want children not to drink alcohol at a young age, then I think it's not helpful if they see a lot of drinking videos and drinking, me and my mates pictures, right? Yep. So they got to be aware of youth workers got to be aware of their own digital footprint.
Interesting. For many, it's way too late though. When they start thinking about it, they need to delete their histories. God knows how. People I know. So, in terms of older people and people in positions of power and decision makers, do you feel like there should be mandatory training for people in these positions? That's something you'd like to see. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. What we do in our trainings, online youth work, it's a 2-day program, and on the second day we don't only have the youth workers, we always have the people who make the decisions in the organizations, and we take them in our training, so they can see what you can reach. They see why it's necessary. They see examples, and they see what the people need. So in our program, it's a complete program, both for the people on the street as the people in the offices who make the decisions.
I mean, I think we're at a stage in society where there's no excuses now about engaging with the digital terrain, and you can't turn your back on this. You need to engage.
As I mentioned before, the online platforms are the new neighborhoods, right? And we can see with artificial intelligence and so we can see in every real neighborhood what's going on, because we have the facts of the online neighborhood.
Yeah. And how important is it to roll this out? For example, in the Netherlands, what's happening on a national level in terms of support structure and the scale of what you're doing?
It's got to be rolled out in the whole world, in the whole of Europe, in the whole of the Netherlands, of course. And that's why we started these trainings, online youth work.
And it isn't just, but what kind of support do you have in the Netherlands?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, what kind of governmental support do you have in the Netherlands?
Interesting. What we're doing now is talk to all kinds of organizations and level up until we reach the government. What we want is that every city, every organization who's doing social work and youth work, that they all do the training online youth work. So we're still how do we say that? Talking to all kinds of governments on every single level, to get them to know the importance of it.
And what kind of would you like to see some policy changes? What do you think should happen?
I think the biggest change we need right now is that politics, schools, universities, they all have to take it serious. They got to take the online work serious. So it's a big part of their whole education. If you become a social worker, you have to do a big study session on these online work sessions. Yeah, I didn't say it quite good, but if you're studying to be a youth worker or a social worker, you've got to get the information to work online properly.
What about the importance of kind of joined up action? So not just youth workers, but working with everybody together. So having a network of digitally connected institutions, services.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's the ambition, right?
I also went to the schools in one of my programs together with a police officer, right? And he was one of the first police officers in our area who was very active online. So and that worked perfect. I also spoke on the police academy to talk about the digital work of the police. And what we now see is that in Holland, more and more police officers have their own Instagram account and their own Facebook, and right. So they finally understand the importance of being online. So what the police does, what the social workers do, and what the youth workers do, also other organizations, I think, must do it to get the connection. People are more and more on their own. They feel more on their own. So if you can get connection by showing yourself online on these social media platforms, I think it's easier for the people to connect to, for example, mental care organizations.
And tell me how important this is all going to be after COVID, once we come out of this crisis.
Yeah. What could happen is that after COVID, they all go back to normal. But what they have to do is that the old normal isn't normal again. You can't imagine a world without social media, without the social media platforms. So it's there, and all people are there. So the organizations also must be there.
And I guess people now are more literate across the board. So everybody's using Zoom, everybody's more active on WhatsApp. Lots of people have kind of engaged with Instagram. So I wonder if you feel like there's a real shift in society after this, that we're going to see after COVID, and when normal won't be the same, as you said, because we're all now a little bit more in a digital space.
Yes, of course, but at the bottom, I think human beings always will stick together in groups, and they have to see and touch each other and meet each other at sports games and at cinemas, etc. So then it's again it's the same as I said earlier. Online is an extra to offline. It's not instead of, it's an extra.
And finally, what good do you think is, if any, what positives might come out of the COVID crisis?
I hope that all organizations and governments will understand the importance of online work, and that COVID forced them to work more and more online. And I hope that after COVID-19, they know the importance of it, and they will invest more in online work.
Fantastic. Now I'm just going to basically say hello to you because we haven't done that yet.
Oh yeah.
So Frank, thanks so much for joining us today. It's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you a lot for having me.
Okay, and then I also want to say thanks for joining us. Hello.
Hello.
Great.
Was it an introduction? Hello or what?
Yeah, I know. Sorry. This is the introduction. Now let's do the introduction first, okay?
It's okay.
Yeah. So Frank, great to meet you. Hi there.
Hello. I'm fine. Thank you.
So just hi there is great. So great to meet you. Hi there, Frank.
Hi there.
Okay, fantastic. And then I'm just going to say goodbye. Thanks very much for joining us, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I'm going to turn my recording off.
Yes. Okay.
I'll put my camera back on. I mean, really, to me, that was even better than last time.